We'll get started. Good day, everyone, and welcome to ALSA's very own first online legal training and workshop on Job Interview 101. I'm Sangeeta Tanasegaran, Director of Legal Training today. So as a law student, I'm sure you can get. We'll attempt to bust your myths on interviews and help you ace the next one. So welcome on board. And it is my honor to introduce our guest speaker for today, Mr. Clive Nalvin Selvapandian from Crystal. He is recognized as a leading lawyer in successive editions of Chamber and Partners and the Legal 500 of Asia Pacific. Good afternoon, sir. May I please request you to address the audience?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. It is a privilege to be here, and I hope the little bit of knowledge that I have, I can shed light on what is it like to be a part of the recruitment process.
All right, that's great. All right, so I shall introduce the structure of our workshop for today. So there will be a series of questions addressed by Mr. Clive on job interviews, and there will be a Q&A session later, and you may raise your hand to ask questions later. All right? All right, shall we begin, Mr. Clive?
Yes. Clive is enough. Clive is enough.
All right.
Yes.
All right, so we shall start our session now and addressing the first question. So we are constantly told to confine ourselves within the walls of lecture halls. But at the same time, some of us are afraid that it might jeopardize our grades. So how important are grades? And please tell us who is more likely to get hired, a student with 3.0 CGPA with mooting achievement, or a student with 3.8 CGPA?
Well, I should say first that my answers would be colored by my experience, and I practice in a firm in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. So my answers will naturally be colored by my experience in a firm. And I've also thought hard about the current climate that we are in at the moment. And because of COVID-19 and how there are fewer job opportunities. So I should also say that my answers will be colored by this climate that we are in as well. Anyway, so the first question, whether a student with 3.8 CGPA is likely to get hired over a student with 3.0 CGPA but with no experience. There is unfortunately not a clear answer to this because it depends very much on the job that you're applying for. Because of this COVID-19 restrictions, naturally you will have more candidates around than you will have jobs. So I think for the next 18 months or so, it will be an employer's market. So what that means is that employers will have the opportunity to pick candidates. And it is a very lopsided playing field in favor of employers. So if you have a lower grade, you must be able to sell yourself. The grades are important, but if you have a lower grade, you must be able to sell yourself. I have a lower grade, and what did I do to address it? Why did I get a lower grade? What experience do I have to compensate for that? That is important. The grade is an important thing because that is what gets you through the door. That is what gets you the interview in the first place.
Right.
But if you have a lower grade, you must be able to sell and say why, what did you do, what skills do you have to compensate for that. So that's important.
Right. Okay.
So unfortunately, I don't have a clear answer because it depends really on the kind of job that you're applying for out of law school. But if you have a lower grade, you must know that question will be coming for you at the job interview, and you must ask yourself, what have you done to address that problem?
All right.
How do you explain it away?
So from what we can construe is that the nature of the job is very important. And I think we love that there's a personal touch to your answers. So with that we could learn from your personal experience itself. So I think that's great. So, okay. So addressing the next question, has a fresh graduate... Hi participants, please mute your microphones. That would be great. All right. So addressing the next question, has a fresh graduate, what's the worst that you have to prepare for?
I wouldn't say what is the worst that you have to prepare for. What I would say is that because jobs will be scarce, I don't think many people will be able to walk out of law school and walk into and become a lawyer straight away, the way it has been traditionally.
Right.
So I think we will see a greater number of people who will have other jobs as a stepping stone before they become lawyers later on in their career, if that is still what they want to do.
Right.
So I wouldn't say that's the worst thing. I would say if you truly want to be a lawyer, that's still something that you can do. But the immediate opportunities may not be as great as they were for your seniors, where you can leave law school and go for the interview in a law firm and get a job. Now you may have to leave law school and get a job maybe in marketing, maybe in sales, maybe teaching law. And then after a few years, when the situation improves, then you become a lawyer. And please don't think this is a bad thing. The skills that you acquire in sales, in marketing, in teaching law, these persuasive skills, I speak for myself as a disputes lawyer. These are the exact skills you need to sell an idea to your client. These are the exact skills you need to make an argument to the judge.
Right.
So it's not a bad thing, but you will not go into lawyering straight away. I don't think that will be the situation now. But go out there and get non-lawyering jobs and acquire these other skills.
Right.
So there's no worst thing. It's just that the route is now different. That's all.
Right. So I think
I must apologize from time to time. I'm just looking at some of the notes that I've made on my screen just to make sure that I mention the points that I want to cover. That's all. Thank you very much.
It's all right. All right. So I think it's safe to say that there's always a storm before a sunshine. So I guess pertaining to that, so what are the major considerations in determining a candidate in job interviews, especially when it concerns legal fraternity?
here, I think you have to ask yourself what kind of a job that you want, that you are aiming for. If you're aiming for a job as a tax lawyer, for example, ask yourself, a tax lawyer in your jurisdiction, what are they made of? Find out who are the leading people in your jurisdiction and then deconstruct them. What does this person have? You find, for example, many tax lawyers have done accounting papers so that they know how to read a balance sheet. If you want to be a criminal lawyer, for example, ask yourself, what does the leading criminal lawyer in your jurisdiction have? You find many criminal lawyers, for example, are involved in many pro bono organizations. They fight for religious freedom, freedom of speech. They write articles, they join organizations. So deconstruct that. If, for example, you want to be to join the judicial services, which is also an option, ask yourself, what do people who join judicial services need? You can join as fresh graduates. You can at least do that in my jurisdiction. I'm from Malaysia, so you can at least do that in my jurisdiction. You can join as fresh graduates, right. Or if you want a senior post, usually you are required to have about 15-20 years of practice under your belt. So that's where I would start. Ask yourself what you want to be, have an idea in your mind, and ask yourself who are these people whom you may want to be like. The world is changing so fast. I can't say that you will be like that person, but who you may want to be like, who you think is in a position that is occupying a space that you would like to occupy in 15-20 years time, and deconstruct that person's characteristics, that person's qualifications, that person's achievements. Ask yourself, what does she have that I can acquire? So that's what you should aim for. What do employers aim for? Law firm employers. Of course, we look at grades. That's what gets you through the door. There's a whole other debate going on whether grades is what we should be looking at.
Right.
Given how a lawyer's career spans over close to 40 years, and whether it is right to look at grades when the skills that you need as a lawyer, as you become more senior, you become more of a leader, you become more of a team player. Your job is not merely confined to getting work done. Your job acquires aspects of bringing work in. As you become more senior, that's what happens. So there's a whole other debate going on there. But for law firms at first year level, at first year level, that's what we are looking at. Grades is where we start because that is the immediate skills that you need. The ability to get work done. Of course, we also be happy if you have moot court experience. If you have if you are involved in the legal affairs of the day, if you are something like a social commentator, if you have all these other side skills, that will be great. I can't give you a one-word answer because of the range of jobs available. But for law firms, I hope I've given you some idea of what you need to do.
Yeah.
Before I end this point, I will just say that instead of asking what are the major skills that employers are looking for, the question in your mind is, how do I sell what I have? That should be the question in your mind. Thank you.
I think we can conclude that it's important to recognize the strength, our strength, and the strength that we need in this legal fraternity and work on that. So I think the next question would be, how should one prepare for interview to impress their interviewers? Because more often than not, we're confused on how to prepare to face.
Well, usually the interview process is part of a larger recruitment process, usually. So when you talk about the interview process, you're talking usually about a stage where you first fill in the application form and hand it in. And if you manage to impress people on paper, then you are called for an interview. So that is usually in KL, at least, that's what you call a first round interview, where you are asked questions by the recruiters. And this, if you are impressive enough there, you are then usually called for a second round interview. A second round interview is where you are asked questions by the person whose team you will join, or sometimes you are asked questions by, you are introduced to the team, the entire team that you'll be working with. So how do you prepare for interview? Number one, make sure that your written application is flawless. That's important. Write your written application, answer the questions, get your written application read by someone from a legal background. Get your written application read by someone from a non-legal background. Do they understand your English, or do they understand what you have written? Can they piece it together? And in your application, I have this technique which many people use. They say, which I've also seen many people use on the internet. Number one, explain yourself. Number two, justify what you have said. And number three, back it up with evidence. This third point cannot be overemphasized. If you say that you want to join the shipping team in my firm, Christopher and Leong, why? Because I think it is a good team. How do you know it is a good team? Because I read the reviews in Chambers and Partners and in Legal 500. For members of the audience that are from Indonesia, for example, we have a sister firm called AHAPI, Asagaf Habza and Partners. They are big on white collar crime. So if you read about the partners there in AHAPI, they gone all out to combat corruption. So that is something that you should weave into your application process. So number one, justify. Number one, explain yourself. Number two, justify what you have to say. And number three, back it up with the relevant evidence. So that's the application process. And then to prepare for the interview itself, so once you're done with the written application designed to impress, you get called for the interview. To prepare for the interview itself, ask yourself the hard questions. Why do you want to be a lawyer? Why choose this firm? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What are your weaknesses? Rarely, why choose this area of law? Rarely an interview goes by without you being asked these questions in some form. Prepare answers for them. Don't memorize them, but have them in your mind so that you have them in point form and you can add a human touch to it when you answer the questions. Prepare them and rehearse them. Ask yourself, for example, also ethical questions. For example, a favorite question in KL, where we have a fused profession. A favorite question is whether we should have two different professions, where you have lawyers who go to court and lawyers who don't go to court, whether we should follow the English system. That's one question. A second question is with technology, where do you see the legal profession going? So you have these questions on the legal profession. You also have ethical questions. Ask yourself, a favorite question in my jurisdiction in KL is, should we abolish the death penalty? What are your thoughts on that? In the context of terrorism, should we torture someone if we can save lives? How do you defend that? How do you argue against that? What changes would you make to the Malaysian criminal justice system? So these questions can come up. And sometimes there are historical questions that are asked. Which historical figure would you invite for a dinner party? So that's a question to ask. How would your friends describe you? What is your favorite book and why?
Right. Okay.
So these are some. So it's really two parts. Number one, making sure you get the application correct, and it's well drafted, and it is vetted by people. No grammatical mistakes, nothing. You have reread it, proofread it. Someone with a legal background has read it. Someone in a non-legal background has read it, and you send that off. So some firms have a set application form that you need to fill up. Do that. Some firms, it's little more than just a covering letter and a CV.
Right.
Send it in, and then ask yourself the usual questions. Why do you want to be a lawyer? Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? What area of law do you want to practice in? Why did you choose this particular firm? So those are the standard questions. And then break it down into ethical questions. Know about your profession, know about current affairs. Be able to ask yourself these personal questions, because this is how people decide whether they want to have you as a colleague.
Right.
So that's the two parts to it: the legal, the written application, and the interview process. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I think that was a very comprehensive answer. And this actually has been a question that all students have been dying to know the answer for. I think just an extension to that question. So in an interview, should a candidate admit their lack of knowledge on the question posed? For example, even on the question, maybe it could be something to do with the opinion. Maybe we should abolish that. But if the student is clueless about that, should he or she admit that?
I think you should. I think you should say that you are not as well versed with this particular issue. But I think it should be a really tough question for you to have to come up with that answer.
Right.
Because these are current affairs questions. I bring up the death penalty issue only because if you are Malaysian or if you are following the news in Malaysia, you would know that we've had this debate recently in Malaysia on whether we should abolish the death penalty. So it's an issue that you can't miss, really. Um, so yes, instead of rattling off an answer that that you have not thought through, yes, it is best to admit if you are unsure of something. But if you are prepared for it, I would think it'll be very difficult to come up with a to miss an issue completely. I would be slow to say that you can't contribute at all, can't answer at all a particular question.
Right, okay. That makes so much sense now that you have put that into a perspective. So what do employers seek when they ask behavioral questions? So there's no right or wrong answers. So what do they actually seek?
Well, behavioral questions are asked because employers want to know whether you have the soft skills necessary to make it in the organization. Often you find that as you progress through the ladder, you need to acquire or you need to project leadership skills.
Right.
You need to be able to have skills to empathize with someone else, with the support staff. You need to have the ability to be honest about your work so that you don't take any shortcuts. So that's something that employers are trying to suss out with these behavioral questions. So in fact, a good book to read is let me see. A good book to read is a book called Soft Skills for the Effective Lawyer. Soft Skills for the Effective Lawyer. I can send Sangeeta the title, and the name of the author is Randall Kaiser. Soft Skills for the Effective Lawyer. I will see. Okay, I've typed it in.
All right.
Okay, so that's where employers are going with the behavioral questions. It may not be so important at the outset, but as you progress through the organization, we hope to see more and more of this. And simply being good at your work is now no longer enough. We expect you to be able to work in a team, to take into account other people's roles, and to even manage time properly. So that's where employers are going with the behavioral questions.
Right, okay. So there's this notion that law degree abroad has a higher credibility than local degree. And more often than not, local degree are disdained by some. So does an international law degree certificate carry a higher weightage than a local degree? What do you think about that?
I don't think it should. I don't think it should. And I think there are only very minor circumstances where a foreign law degree would have the advantage over a local law degree. For example, I do maritime law. So there are maybe 3 or 4 universities in the world that teach maritime law subjects at undergraduate level.
Right.
So if you were applying for a position in the shipping team and you have gone to one of these universities, unfortunately none of them are based in Malaysia where I practice. So if you have gone to one of these universities and you have taken these subjects, then I can see why your degree may have an advantage over degrees from other universities, from local universities where they were not taught these subjects. But I don't think, at least in my firm, there's no discrimination. And it all comes down really to what the candidate has achieved. And I'll come back to this point again, which I mentioned earlier, how you sell yourself. This point cannot be overstated.
Right.
You may have mediocre skills in your eyes, but if you can sell it, that would be best. Even if you have great achievements, and if you can't sell it at the interview, then you might be in trouble.
Right. Okay. Well, the next question would be slightly controversial. Is that does a stereotype attached to gender still play a part? Because they say that, is it true that women who are recently married would be systemically questioned about their plans for having children? How does it work?
To answer that question, I just noticed that I didn't put it in the title of the book, so I've not put it in for everyone. So, Soft Skills for the Effective Lawyer by Randall Kaiser. Okay. So to answer the question about ladies, I don't think that should matter. I don't think it should matter now, especially given how widespread this working from home technology has come. So I really don't think whether you intend to have a family or not, I don't think that should matter at all. As long as you are aware of the trade-offs. If you intend to have a family and your work is disrupted by it, then as long as you are aware that this will happen. And this is not a issue peculiar to ladies, it's also something that men should be aware of. So to answer your question whether this is a disadvantage, I don't think it is a disadvantage. I think employers are open to it. Perhaps the concern that employers had was that what happens to the investment that we have made in the individual because of the training that we have put in, because of all the teaching that we have put in, and maybe after having a family, this person may not want to continue practice or continue working in a firm. All that is understandable, but I don't think that's a question that is relevant at the interview.
Right. Okay. So addressing the next question. So everyone says that they want to be a leader, but how often is it actually true? Should graduates tone down their opinions or independence of thought and provide diplomatic answers in interviews? Is that what the employers are seeking for?
Well, I think if you provide answers that sound the same as all the other candidates, it's hard to stand out. So you must think of something that allows you to stand out and allows you to sell yourself somehow differently. That's important. How do you go about doing that? There are 1,000 different ways. If you had a job selling shoes, for example, you must say how you have acquired the ability to sell things to people, to sell ideas to people, to sell people your point of view. So, no, you shouldn't tone down your opinions. More importantly, you should have an opinion on things. And I think that's the greatest sin, when you don't have an opinion on things. So you shouldn't tone down your opinion, and you should think of a way to pitch that opinion. That is the more important question. I think if you have completed a law degree, you would be able to tell what are the boundaries that you should not cross when selling an opinion. But yes, have an opinion. Firstly, number one, have an opinion, and secondly, think how to sell it, because these are the things that mark you out.
All right.
Before I forget, in most firms, for example, the recruitment committee schedules interviews, 5 or 6 interviews in an afternoon.
Right.
So making an impression and standing out is an uphill task. So that's why it's important to have a well-written application, number one. And number two, to try and say something different, give a different point of view and think of something so that what you say sticks in the mind of the interviewer long after you've gone.
All right. I think you spoke about this earlier as well, about with regards to the written application. So how much of a good impression does a good resume make? Do employers actually fall for the list of participation on resume, which are not backed up by evidence, as you pointed out earlier?
Well, employers like to see some sort of evidence of involvement outside the lecture halls. So this goes towards teamwork, goes towards evidencing teamwork, goes towards showing people how you manage your time, whether you have skills to empathize with other people. So employees want to see some evidence of this. Whether you should have a string of qualifications. Number one, I don't see you having much time to sell this string of qualifications at the interview, or I don't see you having much space to fill in an application process, in application form. So I wouldn't recommend setting out a string of qualifications. I would keep it brief and emphasize 2 or 3 points, and which are my strongest points. That is how I would do it.
Right. I think the biggest takeaway would be that we have to play with our strengths in terms with regards to the interview. So, any advice to fresh graduates to embark on this journey?
Well, I've got a few pointers. What I think is quite important is start building a professional network now. It's never too early to do that. Getting in touch with people whom you might want to work with, getting in touch with people that you might want that you look up to, get in touch with people in your particular field. Start building a professional network. That's important. Number two, find a mentor who can guide you, show you the way. Meet up with that person. At least try and meet up with the person. Learn all you can about him or her, so that you have some idea of the path to go through. And perhaps most importantly, be intellectually curious. Read outside the law. Ask yourself, how can answers to problems outside the law be applied by you in your profession? Try that. And perhaps number 4, have a plan. Have a plan for what you want to do. You can scrap the plan the moment it stops making sense, but have a plan.
All right. That was very insightful, and I'm sure that our audience would have a better sense of direction in terms of preparing themselves for an interview. So now we shall proceed to our Q&A session. So members, you may raise your hands if there's any questions. So we shall wait for the participants to ask questions now.
So I was gonna say if opportunities show up to be interns or paralegals, grab the opportunity. Instead of even if the opportunity to be a pupil, to be a junior lawyer is not there yet, but opportunities to be a paralegal or an internship shows up, grab that and do that. You never know what that may lead to. There are many paralegals or interns who have been taken on by their firm to become pupils. It is an employer's market, but that's so when you have an opportunity to be a paralegal or to even there's some people even doing work as a weekend researcher to some of the senior lawyers. Do that as well. That's fine. Do something to get yourself on the ladder. Having a bad plan is not a bad thing. Having no plan, that's a bad thing. How does an effective CV look like? The standard rule is that it should be one A4 paper, front and back. That's the standard rule. So mine, for example, starts off with my email address and my mobile phone number. That's how people get in touch with you nowadays. There's no need for your postal address anymore. And then you list out the skills that you have, the qualifications that you have, and then it ends with the contacts or the referees that you might have. I've seen people who are a bit more adventurous, and this is something that I would recommend. They go on and create a blog or a website which you can do for free nowadays, or you can do it for minimal money, and they talk about the recent issues of the day. And I've seen a fair amount of students, even with a LinkedIn account, who talk about the issues of the day. So by providing your employers that link to your blog or to your website, so regardless of whether they are the member of LinkedIn, they have this address of your blog, of your website. They can go in. Those who are curious, and I assure you they will read what you have written. So that CV, that website, that blog almost becomes like your covering letter. So, but to answer your question, what an effective CV looks like, front and back, white paper, well written, clear, no spelling mistakes, setting out your qualifications from the most important to the least important. I don't really recommend people setting out what their qualities are, hardworking, diligent, because I really think the evidence should speak for itself. If you are indeed hardworking, diligent, that will come across naturally in the journals that you have written, which you will name and title them, in the moot competitions that you have taken part in the organizations that you have joined. So that is what I would do. I would list the achievements more than anything else. The evidence is most important. That's how you sell yourself.
All right. Okay, we shall wait for the next question. You may raise your hand and ask the questions.
So guys, the most important thing, whilst waiting for the questions, I'll just say the most important thing is how you sell it. That's the most important thing. You must think, what are the skills that I have? How do I sell this? Be realistic, but sell it. there's almost nothing out there that cannot be related to the practice of law. If you have done something entrepreneurial in your life, that is evidence of someone who can bring business in, bring work in. If you are bookish, you are an academic, write the articles, write the journals, tell us about the articles, about the journals, put them in. How you sell yourself is important. And I don't know whether I mentioned this point earlier. Research the people that that you're applying to. Research that law firm. What are they good at? Are the senior guys very much into pro bono work? Then you highlight the kind of legal aid clinics that you have been a member of, so that you have something that can be related to them. Are the senior guys very much into legal education? Changing the way law students are taught in that particular country? Then ask yourself, what can you contribute to that topic? There are famous authors on this. Let me write it out. So I've just written a comment. This author called Richard Susskind. Read his books. They may be available near you. And he talks about the future of the legal profession. He talks about online courts. He talks about how certain jobs within our profession will be automated. He talks about how certain jobs in our profession will stay on for donkey years to come. He has written a string of books. His latest book is called Online Courts. That's his latest book, which has come out very nicely in time for this COVID restrictions. So ask yourself, what's this firm about? And if you can, find out who are the people who will be interviewing you. What does the panel consist of? Call up, ask the receptionist who will be interviewing me. And again, try and sell yourself to this particular group of people. Well, the quality of your achievements, whether it's competitions or not, the quality of your achievements definitely is important. I don't think you will have much space in the written application or at the interview to list out everything that you have done. So you really have to ask yourself what you have achieved, what will relate to these people, and how do I pitch it? You are right. Different competitions have different levels of difficulty. Some may be a regional mood, some may be an international mood. You may have written a paper for a local journal. You may have written a paper for an international journal. So pick the best. And again, this is a crucial skill in lawyering. Pick your best points and sell them. No kitchen sink approach. We don't take the whole thing and throw it in. No. Pick our best points and sell them. How do you interview in times of social distancing? I think most interviews now will be done by Zoom or Skype or one of the online platforms. What we have noticed, what lawyers have noticed, at least in KL, in my jurisdiction, what we have noticed is that because of this remote virtual way of doing things, far more emphasis is placed on the written work that lawyers hand in to the court. So I would think similarly with interviews, far more emphasis will be placed on your written application that you hand in to the employer. I think that will be it. So and then the interview will really be for the people who have gone through that first hurdle of handing in a good written application. Can a law student be a politician? Yes, you can. And in fact, a lot of the law, at least in my country, is related to politics. That's the context in which things come out. So yes, that happens, and I don't think that should be a hindrance. How important is it to know the company's background? It is very, very important to research the people that you're applying to, find out what they are big at, find out what they emphasize on. For example, my firm has a regional network of firms in the ASEAN region. Raja and Tan in Singapore, AHAPI in Indonesia, we have firms in Philippines. So when we ask people why do they come to us, one of the first answers that we would expect is that I want to do work that is international, that is regional, so we can work with different people within the group. And because ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, is such a large economic group, that I foresee that this is the future. So yes, research the people that you will be applying to. And like I said, take the extra effort to call up and ask who are the people who will be interviewing me, and try and pitch yourself to them. What if you don't have experience in legal competitions, but have experience in competitions not related to the law? Doesn't matter. So what? Go ahead, sell yourself. Say, what have you learned from this competition? Say why it matters. For example, if I were you, I would say things like, you know how so much of disputes depends on the facts, what happens, rather than how the law is applied. If you can explain the facts of a case properly, you will know, you can almost tell who's the party who will succeed. So that's how I would sell it. I wouldn't be too caught up on whether it is legal competition, whether it has any law in it or not. That's how I would sell it. What are the things one should never say in an interview? Well, I think you should always aim to come across as respectful and humble. That's important. And respectful and humble, and I think if you keep that in mind, you will generally avoid the pitfalls of saying the wrong thing. I think if you keep that in mind, be respectful and humble, and see the people interviewing you as your future colleagues. How will you treat them? How do we answer the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? That you have to be honest about it. You have to say, so let's say maybe when you're at the interview, you're 24, 25. In 5 years' time, you're 30 years old. So you may want to say something like, I hope by then I would identify the 2 or 3 areas of law that I would like to specialize in. I hope by then I would have made some mark in my career as a person who is well versed with this area of law. I hope I would achieve a position of some seniority that I can work with 1 or 2 people to get work done. So that's how I would answer it. The important thing is to be frank. Where do you see yourself? Do people who have not joined mooting competitions be at a disadvantage? If it is, then how do you whether that is a problem or not? I don't think that is a problem. It depends on what else you have done, and it depends also on what kind of a job you're applying for. Some jobs, if you want to be, for example, a disputes lawyer in my jurisdiction, we look forward to people having some sort of moot experience. If you want to be a corporate lawyer, for example, there's simply no need for moot experience. So it depends on what kind of a job you're applying for, and if you don't have the experience, what else do you have to compensate for that? It is not the end all that you don't have any moot court experience. What the interviewer has in mind when he asks for this experience is because he or she wants to know whether you have the makings of a disputes lawyer. At least in my jurisdiction, that's how it is. We meet students who are involved in moot courts, so that because we think these are the best indication, that's the best indication that this person is interested in being a disputes lawyer, standing up in court and arguing something. That's all it is. An indication of the interest that this person might have. What if you are asked a question that you are unfamiliar with? Then it's best to say that you are unfamiliar with the question. It's best to say that you're unfamiliar with the question, and confess that way. But like I said, I would think hard that there should be very few questions where you're unfamiliar with. You should go in prepared. But if you're unfamiliar with something, yes, then say you're unfamiliar with it. Hopefully there'll be a second question that you can answer. What does the interviewer think when he says okay, is a reference necessary? To be honest, I don't think many employers call up the referee to ask. Most employers make a decision based on what you've written in your written application and how you perform during the interview. But it has become like a matter of practice to have a referee. Foreign law firms, yes, best to apply. Foreign law firms, yes, best to be an intern first, and then get a job there. For foreign law firms, in my jurisdiction, at least they take in interns, and there is a great advantage in being and interning in a foreign law firm because you get to see a different point of view altogether. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? That question, like so many of the personal questions, is meant to get an insight into your personality, to sort of put you on the spot. It's just a variation of the question, like, who would you invite for dinner? To get an insight into your own thinking, because what you would have said to see how well you think on your feet, how you put words together, so that it's not so much the substance of the answer, but how you phrase it. If there's a question, asking rate, I assume if there's a question on the salary, how do you respond to that? That's a tough question. I can only think that you will say that you will accept what is the market rate. And well, in my jurisdiction, at least that question rarely comes up because it is pretty much standardized by the firm. Most firms have a structure on what they will pay, unless you see that you have a different qualification somehow. And therefore, what you are asking, what the salary that you will ask for is above the market rate. Then again, it depends really on how you sell yourself. Business law, if you have a business law degree, I don't think there's any particular constraint on whether you should go to a law firm or to a commercial company. If you can land a job either way, do it. Try and how you can and do it. I don't think it is you are constrained to go either way, whether it's a law firm or a company. And like I said, any skill that you acquire outside of a law firm will be valuable. It's just a matter of how you sell yourself. Well, what if an interviewer asks a question and you give an answer that is opposite? Well, it doesn't matter if you give an answer that is not what is expected. What is important is that you must justify what you're saying. Think it through and sell your answer. That is the most important thing. An answer that is different from the rest only makes you stand out, which is a good thing. But when you provide the answer, say why I say so and sell it. Well, personal traits or professional traits, this is tough. There is a growing tendency to hire people based on where we think they will go instead of where they've been. But so we want to hire people who we think will go somewhere in the organization instead of merely stating where they've been, which is the grades and the mood competition answers. I don't know how to give you a straight answer to it. I can only think that if you think you have personality traits that are important, you must be able to sell it. Point to the evidence why you think this is important, how you went through hardship in life, yet you have succeeded. That's how you do it. Or if you have gone through a particular rough patch in your life, yet you have made it here, highlight that, be frank about it, and sell it. If there's one takeaway here from my talk, I hope you will. The takeaway is that you must be able to sell yourself. Okay. Sangeeta has my contact details. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, WhatsApp me. No problems. Let me. Okay, you now have my email address. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, and I'll be happy to to answer the questions.
All right. So that will be the end of our sharing session today. Also, I would like to extend our deepest gratitude to Clive Nalvin Selvapandian for his sincere effort and effective contribution today. So before we end this session, I would like to pass the floor to Raka Kamil, the Vice President of TED Department.
Hi, Mr. Clive. It's nice to meet you again. Thank you very much for your time in attending this job interview session. And I think I speak on behalf of everyone here. It gives me a lot of insights to what to prepare for the interview, especially we are in, some of us is actually on our last year, or some of us is actually on our last semester. So this is actually give us a lot of insights, and thank you very much for today's session. And I do hope for the members who attend the session today, it gives you encouragement on prepare yourself in the future, as well as you can take a lot of this information and maybe pass it to your friends that from the great information that Mr. Clive has given to us. I guess that would be all from me. Thank you again, Sky.
Thank you everyone for having me. Thank you very much. Take care. I wish you guys good luck.
All right. Thank you so much. So with that, hope to see you all in the next session, guys.
Thanks, everyone.